Mary Jo. We've been meeting with a group of business people, tourism folks, veterans, just a whole lot of stakeholders that are really excited about this designation. And the trail, so the idea was to actually have a World War II trail. And that is pretty much ready to go. So we're working right now on signage, which the Corpus Christi, the United Corpus Christi Chamber of Commerce is actually going to pay for the signage. There'll be a QR code on the signage that will direct people that are doing this self-guided driving trail. It will direct them to a landing page. The landing page is going to be part of the Visit Corpus Christi website. So they'll be able to get information. So that's almost completely complete. But we're going to have an event to announce this trail, and the Nueces County Historical Society is definitely invited to that event. It will be on November the 10th. And if somebody has a calendar, just please tell me that that's a Friday. I believe November the 10th at 11 o'clock on the USS Lexington. And there will be media there and all the dignitaries from town and around and all the people that you would expect. And then there'll be us history folks. So I would love it if the history people outnumbered the elected officials that might be there. That would be great.
What time is it again?
It'll be 11 o'clock. And if there's any change to that, I'll let you know. But as of our last meeting, that was the date and time and location.
Inside or outside?
It's going to be inside. It'll be on the main deck, not the flight deck. So, okay. The next thing I wanted to let you all know is the Ritz Theater has begun working on raising the money. They've actually began a while back, but really the push now to match the money that the State Historical Commission gave them for outdoor type things. It was part of the Hurricane Harvey money, and so it will really be used to seal the building, get it airtight, watertight, all that type of stuff. And one of the ways that they're doing this is through Friends of the Ritz. And I just wanted to let you all know, any donation will allow you to become a friend of the Ritz. So if you go on your Facebook and just like the Ritz Theater page, you'll start getting their information. They are holding informational sessions about how things are going and all of that currently. That'll be going on for the next few weeks. They have one tonight, but we're here tonight. So anyway, that's the Ritz. Also, I wanted to let you know, in terms of that, the board this afternoon decided that we are going to give a donation of $100 in the name of the society to Patch, which is the nonprofit that will be responsible for the rehabilitation process. Karen, did you want to say something about Friends? Not Friends of Old Bayview, but Voices.
We're having our 14th year of Voices of South Texas Old Bayview Cemetery comes alive on November 4th, Cleveland 10-2, just like we always do, and everyone's welcome. I can always use storytellers. We have a couple of storytellers that are unable to make it. Other health and other commitments. So if anybody's interested in being a storyteller for Voices, let me know. And we'll have everybody there.
Great, sounds good. One other thing is, y'all, the board has also thought about the fact that as we look around this room, the majority of us are very experienced people. We've been around, and maybe we need some people that are not quite as experienced as we are So one of the things that we're going to do is Michelle has worked on a flyer that she's going to be sending out to board members so that we can just proofread it or add anything that we think ought to be in there. And we've already spoken with a couple of our college and university professors and teachers, and they're going to pass them out to their students. But having a flyer doesn't mean that the rest of us are kind of left off the hook here. We need to start inviting people to come to these meetings. The more inexperienced, the better, in my opinion. My first meeting here, I knew nothing. I knew nothing about this organization, and it doesn't take long before everybody here is extremely welcoming and caring, and I know that we can nurture these folks because we're very experienced at doing that. So let's try to get our membership up. Ms. Kathy, you had an announcement.
Yes, I do. On the 19th, it's Tuesday, we are collaborating with Tropical Trails to do we're going to Port Aransas, but we are going to be rededicating another marker over there that was lost during the Harvey storm. We're going to be doing that at 9:30 at Roberts Park, and you're all invited. If you want to participate in Tropical Trails that day, just if you're already signed, if you're a member, just sign up. I know that Alan is and some of the others in here. We're going to go to Port Aransas. It's in the planning stages still, but we pretty well got the program ready for the rededicated U.S. Coast Guard Station, Muscatine Island.
September 9th.
Kathy, y'all have kind of a tentative time? Time that you're doing this?
9:30.
So
Repeat the date.
19th.
So September 19th.
Roberts Park.
I don't know. Go find
You
it.
have to look it up. You have to look it up.
Where the hell were you?
GPS.
Yeah, GPS.
Right there at the fair.
Right at the ferry, okay.
Get off the ferry and show you.
To the right,
When you get off there,
to my left, okay.
Okay, thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else have anything that they want to announce or let us know? Anybody else? Okay, Ms. Kathy, would you come and introduce our esteemed speaker?
Sure.
Be careful of the car.
Harriet, you were saying good things? Okay, I've known Harriet Tillman for a very long time. Former teacher, special teacher. She worked with the deaf unit that was at Hamlin's. But better yet, her husband, which we call Mr. Tillman, we did not call him Ernie, was my teacher at Baylor Junior High School. But she has done a program about lady educators here in our area of Corpus Christi. I know that I'm looking at that right now. I know the Savage School is over there. It's a shame, you know. We are so concerned about the saving, and I think that's where our emphasis needs to be right now. Not only with this group, but every historical entity here in Nueces County needs to watch out what's going down next. Be aware, be the eyes and ears, and I think you need to talk about that just a little bit, maybe later. Because things are fast disappearing. I look around the block and all of a sudden it's gone. You know, happened to Saxon Center just recently. But here's the talk to us about early education. She knows all about it.
Well, before I talk about what she said I was going to talk about, I want to talk about what was happening in that little church weekend.
You're gonna have to have a mic.
Yeah. Okay. In the late 30s, the school district was in a crisis. They were finishing the naval base with 9,000 workers. They were finishing the bayfront with hundreds of workers. The whole town was dug up while they made the infrastructure for the sewer and electricity, and people were coming to work, but they were bringing their families. And the schools were not prepared for the number of people that were coming and enrolling in schools. So the district had to come up with some maybe innovative ways to do it. And so,
Harriet, can I make a suggestion about using the mic and keep it in
Keep it
front
there,
of your-
okay.
Yes,
Okay.
because otherwise thank you.
the year is 1940, the year I started first grade at Savage Elementary. And we went to school half day. There was a morning session, 8 to 12, and an afternoon session, 1 to 4. And I was in this morning session with Miss Ruby Johnson. There were 32 of us, first graders, 19 of them boys. And I wish you could see the picture a little closer, because the boys in the first row, especially, some are barefooted. One of them has overalls with the thing hanging off. One of them has on those little outfits that you button on at the middle, like the boys used to wear. The girls don't look so different, but the little boys all look like they would rather be out playing, if you could see that up close. And I started 73 years ago today, the day after Labor Day. And we didn't start till then because it was supposedly a little bit cooler, and there was no air conditioning. Because we got out at 12, we didn't have to bring our lunch. And I don't remember if we brought a snack or not, but we all had a little book satchel, and we had to take everything home, book or pencil and stuff, and bring it back every day because somebody else used the classroom in the afternoon. And that lasted 20 years. They stopped, I think, 57, which was the first year I taught here. So it went on, the half-day school went on a long time. We learned to sight read, didn't have phonics, with Dick and Jane. And I still know, look, Dick, look, see Jane run. And at recess, we played with the swings, the monkey bars, seesaws. We played jacks and jump rope. The boys played marbles. We played red rover and dodgeball. And many of those games or things no longer exist because they're considered too dangerous. Look at the playgrounds today, you won't see them. This was 4 months before we went to war. And in December, after the war was declared, everything changed in schools, but that's a story for another day. In spite of all these problems, we had a wonderful school, and Miss Johnson was a special teacher with tremendous patience. And this was my beginning, I guess I'd say, career with CCISD. I went to school 11 years. I skipped 1 grade. I taught for 31 in the district. I was a parent of 4 that graduated from Corpus Christi schools, a grandparent of several, and a mentor. My daughter, who's helping me, retired in May, and my last granddaughter graduated last year. So this is the first year in 73 years that I do not have a direct connection with CCISD.
That could be a good thing.
It can, yes. But I won't say that. You can't. All right. Excuse me. Now to the subject at hand. Well, let me tell you one more thing. I belong to Delta Kappa Gamma, which has played a big part in helping teachers through the years. They were organized in 1929 and for the purpose of helping teachers do have a better working situation. And I'll mention them several times. Okay, sure. Change. Before I start, there's several things you need to keep in mind. I told you already, school started for the day after Labor Day because of no air conditioning. The first air conditioning at Corpus was in the library at Wade High School in 19...
Audio visual word.
Yeah, oh, in 1951. While styles have changed,
Because it was the only air
in the
conditioning.
early days, most teachers wore corsets, long dresses, petticoats, hose, and heels. None of them ever wore long pants, blue jeans, t-shirts, or tennis shoes. There was no Amazon, Walmart, school supply stores. Any decorations were handmade. And there were no teacher's editions, or no computer to plan lesson plans, no machines to make copies, and school supplies were very limited. When I first taught to make copies, we had a little tray like a cookie sheet with gelatin in it, and you would press the ditto over it, and then you would press the paper over, and then you would have a copy, and you could get about 15 copies out of a thing. And most women, teachers were not allowed to teach or to continue teaching after they married or had children. And even when I had my first child, he had to be a year old before I could go back to teaching. So times have changed. Sherry talked to the day before she had one of hers. But anyway, Corpus got the first public school in 1871. There were two teachers, Miss Rose Baden and Miss Rhoda Burke, and they were paid $50 a month. Classes for white students were held in the Methodist Church, and classes for the blacks were held in the old Red Man building on Water Street. The following year, two schoolhouses were built up on Karanka Way, about where the courthouse is now. One building for white students and one for black, with a fence separating the two. At this time, the county was divided into 4 school districts, each operating on its own, and teachers would be examined once a month for competency, and the state only paid for 4 months of operation. The districts were where Savage was, I can't remember, but Costores, Sunshine, CCISD, and I can't remember the district I was in. Now, there have been many really good teachers along the way that I can talk about, but the ones I've chosen are ones that I directly or indirectly had some contact with. The first one was Ms. Rose Dunn. She was born in Corpus in 1875 to Mr. and Ms. Lawrence Dunn, a pioneer family in the area. She had a brother, Maxwell P. Dunn, is that familiar? And a sister, Geraldine, who was also a teacher. She graduated from Incarnate Word at 16 and was immediately chosen to be the whole faculty at Tolosa School. There were several disadvantages to the position. She was younger than quite a few of the students in her class, and she had to ride 8 miles to school, and the horse was so tall that she couldn't get on him by herself, so she had to keep one of the boys after school to help him off the horse. In 1896, a room was rented in a building on Leopard Street to use as a classroom to teach 3 grades of Mexican-American pupils. Miss Rose Dunn was chosen to teach the children enough English so that they could go to regular school after they first completed the 4th board. She was the only teacher, and school started with 110 pupils in 3 grades. And as the pupils progressed from 1st to 3rd grade, they moved from one side of the classroom to the other. In 1900, she married E.J. Shaw, and in 1906, she began teaching at the primary grades at Chester Heath and was assigned a principal in 1912. Heath was a brand new wooden building with a coal stove and a special janitor, both of which thrilled Mrs. Shaw. In 1925, the wooden building was replaced with a brick building. And it was located again where close to the courthouse. Rose took time out to have her 3 children, but was called back each time after the baby was born. Not unusual happening. Ms. Shaw continued her education at Sul Ross College and the University of Texas in A&I, where she got her degree in 32. She was an exception to the rule about married teachers with children. Many principals shy away from hiring new teachers, but Ms. Shaw welcomed them. She would demonstrate her phonetic method of teaching reading and would mentor them as they grew. And she would really get mad when the teachers were transferred to other schools. She had the adoration of the Mexican-American people. She could speak their language right down to the slang and idioms and the cuss words. During the Depression, she used funds provided by the Rotary Club to feed 400 of her children in the basement. They cooked beans on a single hot plate every morning. She bought them shoes with her own money, and her faculty complained that she was too lenient on the bad kids. But as soon as this teacher would start complaining, listing the child's offense, she would begin by pointing out that the child had a lovely character, only it was way down deep. She served as principal for Chesapeake for 30 years and retired in 1943 after almost 50 years of education. She passed away in 1949 at the age of 74. And during her career, she served under 9 superintendents. There are many more stories that could be told about her, and it's very fitting that a school be named in her honor. The first elementary school bearing her name was built in 55 on Virginia Street, and it was remodeled in 1988. The second Rose Shaw was built in 2005 and is located on Soledad Street. It is a special emphasis school now. There are 2 other teachers in this time period that I want to look at. The first one is Ella Barnes. She was born in Tennessee and came to Corpus with her parents in 1889. When she arrived, she says the place was just a little town of wooden buildings and unpaved streets. 3 years later, when she was 18, she began her teaching career in Flower Bluff after a teacher was called away. As an advanced student, she was asked to take over the class for the remainder of the year, and she taught there for several years before she took a year off to study advanced private lessons in geometry. Math and history were her favorite subjects, but I did not find anywhere that she had any more education than that 1 year. She returned to Corpus Christi to teach at Central High, a 3-room wooden building. During the early years, she drove to town in a buggy from a farm in Flower Bluff. She was named principal of that school 23 years later. And on retiring from that school, she was served as registrar. She lived with her sister on Alameda, and the house was shaded by a big tree, so she had a cow and a vegetable garden in the back. She was an avid quilter and shared her quilts with her family and friends. Since Miss Barnes had taught several generations of the family, she was known personally by more than thousands of people than any other Corpus Christian. When she retired, she'd been in the CCISD for 42 years and in education for more than 50. She was still alive when Ella Barnes Junior High School on Highland Street was dedicated in 1957. Mayor Farrell Biff declared it Ella Barnes Day, and one of her former pupils, Graham Leslie Wright, was the speaker. Ella Barnes was 88 when she died in 1962. The junior high closed in 77 because the population declined in the neighborhood, and it was demolished. And when a new elementary school was built on Osa Creek, her memory was still honored, and it became Ella Barnes Junior High School. And I need to tell you a story about Patty Ray's mother. she had called me one day and asked if I would get some genealogy family stuff together for her. And I said, oh, sure, I'll do it. And I was going to bring it to her. She says, no, you don't need to bring it to me. I'll come get it. Because she went to swimming at the Y. And she was 100 years old at the time. And she walked in, and I had these pictures. I had done a presentation, had the pictures, and she walked in, she said, oh, there's Ella Lawrence. And she started telling me all about her and what a wonderful teacher she had been. Also, my husband taught math there for several years. All right, the next one is Mary Carroll. She's one of my favorites, and I love that picture. Mine. Okay. She was a native of Corpus Christi, but spent her early childhood in Mexico, where her father had a furniture factory, and so she was fluent in Spanish. In 1901, she began her career here teaching Spanish, which was compulsory. She was 18, only a few years older than her students, and she had no formal education. There were two public schools, both located where the parking lot for the courthouse is now. The staircase that led to the second floor of the elementary was divided, and a fence continued out the front door and down the sidewalk to divide the girls' and boys' playgrounds. The high school was divided into 3 rooms, and Miss Mary's day was divided between both schools, teaching Spanish from 6th through 11th grade. There wasn't a 12th grade at the time, and she was paid $50 a month. In 1911, the new high school was built, and here again, this is where we're getting starting to grow. They need more room. The people called it the Brick Palace, and parents were concerned because there wasn't a fire escape. So several slides were built from you can see it there, from the second floor down, so the children could get out in case of a fire. But it was such a novelty that the kids would sneak out and go down the slide. So the teachers decided that, Mary Carroll suggested the teachers solve the problem. So every day for 1 week after school, she had kept the children and had them slide down. There was a boy at the bottom to help them up, and they would go around. And after some sore bottles and torn clothes, the news wore off and the problem was solved. In 1921, still without college training, Miss Carroll was appointed principal and then superintendent. In addition to the high school, there was now Hirsch, Evans, Heath, Furman. She was the only woman to have been superintendent in CCISD, and Miss Ella Lawrence replaced her as principal of the high school. During her 11 years as superintendent, the new Corpus Christi High School, Leroy Miller, was built way out in the country on Leonard Street. Mary worked with the architects, the contractors, and the buildings on the new high school. It cost $450,000 and had $45,000 worth of furnishings. This was a beautiful school until they put air conditioning in. And then they took out those gorgeous windows and they've redone it, and I don't know whether it's as ugly now as it was for a while, but it was a very beautiful school.
It's ugly.
Well,
It is ugly.
yes, it is.
Still.
I haven't been out to look at it lately. The second big event.
How much is any of that left underneath
I don't know.
the
The library was up on the 3rd floor, and across Hog Drive was a vacant lot, and the circus would come on the train down Port and Park, and then they would come and set up their tents across the school. And I worked in the library, so I sat in that window and got to watch them bring all the stuff for the circus. The second big event of Mary's term was the creation of the junior high. The Brick Palace became Northside Junior High School. Previously, the kids had gone from grade school to high school. But from then on, they had 5 years of grade school, 3 of junior high, and 3 of high school. Still no 12th grade. After World War I, the requirements were changed, and college degrees were demanded. So while she was superintendent, she managed to get her BS, a master's from UT, and completed 2 years on her doctorate. By 1933, Mary's last year as superintendent, Crosby and Minker schools and Solomon's Cove were all added to the system. After 33, the reason why she was no longer superintendent, the men decided that it was men's job. And so the women that were in higher positions were removed. Those were the good old boys' days. Sorry, men. In 1933, after 1933, Miss Carroll taught in the Valley schools for a while, and then returned to Corpus, where she made her home on Caronco. She was 88 when she died in 1971. When Corpus Christi's third high school was built on Weber, it was named Mary Carroll in her honor. In the fall of 2022, Old Carroll was closed and a new one took its place on Saratoga. The cost for this school was $175 million. Her home was bought by the city and moved behind Heritage Park on Mesquite Street. And I think, I haven't been down there while the Corpus Christi Education Foundation is housed on that site. All 4 of my children attended Carroll. My sister graduated from there, and I graduated from high school. Now, we're going to go forward a few years and meet Jovita Gonzalez. She was born in 1904 on her family's ranch in Roma. She moved to San Antonio with relatives to get a better education. And after finishing high school, she taught and alternately went to college to get her degree. She married E. Morales in 1939, and the couple moved to Corpus Christi. Edmund and Jovita collaborated to write 2 sets of Spanish language instructional books that were used throughout the state. And he had coordinated the CCISD Basic Education Federal Programs and was recognized as one of the founders for bilingual education. Jovita taught Spanish at Miller High School for 4 years, and at Ray for 17. I met her at Miller, where she was my Spanish teacher, and our classroom was in Cal Allen. That was a classroom under the stadium on the far side. You know Buck Stadium? There were classrooms all underneath. We had 3 extra minutes to get there, because we had to go all the way from the building to school across the stadium. In the spring, after we had our classes, Miss Morales invited us to have tea at her home on Hillcrest. We had studied the appropriate phrases and words in Spanish, and we all dressed in our Sunday best and went to tea with party sandwiches and daily cookies. We were supposed to speak only Spanish while we were there, and needless to say, it was a rather quiet party. Their papers are out at A&M, and I got on the website to check them out and found this picture and asked for a coffee. I sat in the chair that she's sitting in to drink my tea. She and her husband received many honors and awards for their work. Miss Morales joined our Beta Psi chapter of Delta Kappa Gamma in 42. She was 80 when she died in 1980. And an elementary school bearing their names opened in 2000. And there's a marker that was placed there, I believe, last year, or maybe 2 years ago. It recognizes their work. Now, last but not least, I'll mention one more teacher who has been very important to me, and she is Nanny Culver. She was a charter member of my Beta Psi chapter of Delta Kappa Gamma and served in various offices. She was born in Louisiana and moved to Portland with her parents as a small child. She graduated from Bayview College in Portland. Did you know there was a college in Portland? There are pictures of it somewhere. She moved to Corpus Christi in 1905, and as a teacher, she wrote and directed many school programs. She taught in Taft and was principal at Green Avenue Elementary for more than 20 years. And she also taught at David Hirsch Elementary School on North Beach for a number of years. She retired in 1951, but continued to work in real estate. She was 89 when she died in 1952, and she had never married. And in her will, she left money for a scholarship fund for our chapter. It's over $8,000.
$8,356.
She's treasurer. And we use the interest of that account to provide scholarships for teachers wanting to improve their education. And I've done more except that I guess you have too on one of the scholarships. Now, there are many more teachers that are just as important as these, but because I had connection with these are the 5 I chose. All of them have been dedicated to their profession and have had successful careers.
Yes.
You made a comment saying you only went to 4 hours of school. Was that all the way through your elementary or just first grade?
All the way,
All the
the
way.
schools all were a half day.
Half a day. Boy, I would like that.
There was not enough room for all the students, so that's the way they had it. And they went for a while to high and low grades. And if you came into the district after a certain period of time, say after the first 6 weeks or the middle, then you had to wait till the semester to start. So I was in low second, and I skipped high second and went to low third. So that made it me finishing the year uneven. The next year, I would have gone to low fourth, and then they quit having it, so I skipped the high fourth. So I ended up skipping a whole year of school when they went back to regular grade. It's just like the schools, they always try new things, and some work and some don't. But they were desperate for more room. There was just simply not enough space. Yes?
Did the same teacher that taught the morning session also teach the afternoon session?
She had this little bunch in the morning, and she had this bunch like it in the afternoon.
35 of those little ones.
With an hour for lunch.
35 and then 35.
35 and 35?
Yes, think of it, 70. I just retired from 30 years of teaching elementary school. I would think that would be marvelous, but just 35 and 35.
Nowadays, you don't have more than 20 first graders, do you?
22 is the cap.
22.
I find it interesting in my mother's generation of how many people skipped a grade or two.
Yeah.
So my mother graduated at 16, also to go to college.
Yeah,
So they just did that, I guess.
if you were smart enough and could do the work, you went on.
They moved them on.
But you know, when I was going to Del Mar, there was a future teacher organization, and the teachers used to have, I think it was called music trails. And they let us who were in the future teachers go take their class while they went to music trails. And I had a second grade class, I want to say, it was a school out close to the airport, I don't remember what it was. And I had a boy in the second grade that was 14 years old.
Oh my goodness.
This was a time that you didn't pass if you couldn't do the work, so these kids stayed there.
Oh my God.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's awful.
Well,
yeah,
not only that, if they pass them and they don't get what they needed at that grade, they can't succeed at the next grade.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing you're one of the experienced people that Susan was referring to.
What?
I'm just guessing you're one of the experienced people that Susan was referring to earlier. What's your opinion of the 4-day school week that's now in vogue?
Well, I haven't really studied, but I think they need to go 5 days. Not only do they need to go 5 days, what are the parents who have to work going to do with the kids that extra day? You know?
Well, actually, taking a whole summer off, you have to, the kids have to, spend about 6 weeks catching back up.
Yeah, true.
If they have June, July, and
The
August.
ideal thing would be year-round school.
I agree. I just retired after 30 years, and I would have liked it for CCISD. I only taught CCISD to have a year-round schedule.
I didn't like year-round schedule.
You didn't?
No,
See,
It's best for the
it still
students.
has the break.
it didn't work for the kids either. I'll tell you in a minute, go ahead and finish.
But I don't know. I mean, that's just, but I taught younger kids, and so. maybe
So I
it's-
was with Tulsa Midway because I was teaching out of London in the school district when we joined Tulsa Midway as our high school, and they decided to go year round. Okay, so it was basically so that anybody who was having trouble could have that week off to learn. It was not used as that, it became a playtime. It did not become an education. Now, I may have changed over that because I quit it for a while, I couldn't stand it. Because my kid was at CCIC and my youngest was in London, and so here I was, not, having to jockey to schedules. So I don't like year-round.
I thought
there's
the
a lot of
school
people who do.
district was Fairview. That was out up River Road. Savage was down the original. You have a question?
No.
You mentioned, you were teaching, or they were teaching Spanish classes. So were they elective, or were those classes mandatory for?
But early it was mandatory.
I think they were mandatory.
Why would they be having, be teaching Spanish in an English system?
Because we're bilingual here. We're bilingual in Corpus Christi.
Yeah, I understand your question.
So that was another, right.
I don't understand, but
But Miss, the other thing is, how many of the, well, you have to answer the question, but I remember taking Spanish when I was in high school. And I figured I was gonna take the course because I was gonna breeze by it, because I already knew Spanish. How long it was. I barely passed the course.
Me too.
So they were teaching us a foreign Spanish, like she
Yes.
said, we're my neighbor.
More Castilian.
We were not even taught the Spanish we learned at home.
yeah.
Like what we done is she married this guy from Mexico, so he was telling her what needed to be taught. And it went all against what she was doing, but because he was in charge, she went that route, and then eventually applied with whatever Spanish, the foreign Spanish that was being taught to us, that we knew our Spanish. And then we thought, oh, you're speaking Tex-Mex. There's no such thing as Tex-Mex. But and so anyway, that's the reason I asked.
I should have brought, I have the Spanish book I had in 2nd grade, I should have brought it. It's SDS Algonto Espedileche. You got the same one?
Just kind of wondering, the brick palace that you spoke of, where was it located?
What?
The brick palace?
It was up on the hill. I would say the parking lot for where the courthouse is.
Right behind the school district office.
Where that was. Oh, really?
Yeah, all the schools were concentrated right there to begin with.
Okay.
And luckily, being on the hill, when the 1919 storm came, what was there didn't go away.
Actually, I believe it was where Tower 2 and the AEP building are now, because when I moved here in Central High, the foundation was still there.
Oh, okay.
And David Hirsch was not on North Beach. David Hirsch was about where the Corpus Christi Museum is today.
There was another school, there was a school on the, when I read that, I thought it was, But there was a school on North Beach, I wouldn't say it just was called North Beach School, but I'll check that out, because David Church was up on the hill.
I got one other comment that has nothing to do with Corpus Christi schools. My dad grew up in Ohio on a farm, and he went to a one-room school for his first 8th grade. He said that was the best deal going. If you finish your work in class, you could sit there if you were in 2nd grade and learn what the 8th graders were learning. And he said it was just so stimulating.
Yeah, the younger ones learn from the older ones. My mother went to Aberdeen. It was the area of
South Shore.
Airline and Alameda, something right there. And her uncle's kids went to Sunshine, which is farther away. And then Sunshine and Aberdeen combined to make Sunbeam. And there was, high school was out on places. The junior high was where Lowe's is. And the elementaries were scattered around.
Lowe's lumber.
Yeah. Elementaries were scattered around. One of them was up where the post office is on Everard. Out that corner.
Here, what concerns me, and I want us to do a program on that for the retired teachers, how many of our schools have now been torn down? And who even remembers where they were, who they were? Parkdale, Frazier, Fisher, and
Clark.
yeah.
Savage
I think we need to
Savage
find
is
some way to
phenomenal.
remember them.
You know, I grew up in Country Club Place. My school is gone, my house is gone, Highway 32 took it, my church is gone.
Yes.
Everything over there is.
So I'm worried about his reputation.
How many of these schools were named after some of these ladies? I think of the Barnes and some became superintendents or
I didn't count,
Morales.
but we got, Faye Webb, we've got.
Hicks was it?
Gloria Hicks.
Gloria Hicks.
She's not this year, but no.
But she's not.
I don't know, I'll have to look it up, I've got a list, but I was thinking about that. Yeah, a lot of them were, well, and a lot were named for men, W.B. Ray, Carl Hamlin, Minger, Dawson. Yeah.
Baker, Hamlin.
Most of them.
I just wish that they would not change their name once they decide to tear something down, because that's just kind of defeating the purpose of giving that person that honor. And to generations after them to say, okay, my dad had this school, now wrong. They decided to tear it down and give another name. That's what I have problems with CCIC. I think they should keep their name.
Yeah.
If they're gonna rebuild, keep their name.
I don't know, the new school that is open.
Cullen Place.
Cullen Elementary.
Where
Cullen's
Cullen is, does it have it doesn't have a person's name, does it?
Cullen.
That was on my grandpa's farm.
Was it?
Cullen was a person, wasn't
I think he was still Cullen.
he? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yay.
Thank you, Harriet.
I have a question. How many teachers are in here? Wow. Yeah,
School psychology.
that's pretty great. That's pretty great. And my daughter, Harriet, is also a teacher. My granddaughter she taught for 3 years, but she decided she didn't like it, so. It's better to get out, the sooner she get out if you don't like it, I guess. I just want to say one thing. I got to meet Harriet years ago at the deaf school. I was putting my way through college by substitute teaching. And I got a wonderful permanent substitute, or a long-term substitute teaching. I was so excited, but of course I had to learn to sign. So not only did I have to learn how to teach little children, because it was at COG, it was elementary school children, which I was going to school to teach secondary ed. I also had to learn to sign with those little kids, but it was probably one of the best experiences of my whole life, was being there with all the teachers, and those kiddos were fabulous. Yeah, it was a fun time. Okay, thank you all very much. We have a really exciting program next month. Alan is gonna be talking to us, and I believe he's got a whole lot of stuff new stuff that we've never seen, that's old stuff. So it'll be fun. We look forward to next month. We're going to try something different. We're going to try to get on our Facebook sooner what our program is going to be. And anybody that's on Facebook is then going to try to share it. And we're going to try to get the word out. We're going to try to use a little social media a little differently than what we're doing now, just to see if that will help us bring in more folks. So anyway, anybody else have anything? Yes, Rudy John.
Since you just mentioned that, and I was looking at the information that was on the for the program. And so I said, it says there, if you want further information, go to Facebook or the website, www. And so some of the folks are not on Facebook, but they can go to the website.
The website.
And then also information, right?
Yeah, because you keep the website up, Mike, right? Because I typically just go to Facebook. But, okay. All right, we'll see.